Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I've been playing PokeMMO going on around 10 years now. And I love this game. I think it's the best Pokemon game out there. I think there's a lot of incredible things to praise and talk about it. But today, I want to talk about the top 3 things that I actually want to see added to PokeMMO in 2023 and talk about why. And not just what I want to see in the game, but what I want to see the developers accomplish and everything. Now, I think it's really, really important to give the developers a lot of praise and appreciation. Don't just critique developers. It's very easy to think of developers as almost non-human and just some sort of corporation or business, but that's especially not the case here with PokeMMO, where it's a very small developer team. They're very human. They put in a lot of work. They do a very good job, and they create the best Pokemon game, in my opinion. And it's important to tell them that and give them that praise and give them that appreciation. Now, it's also important to critique them and help the game become as best as possible, but please do so with kindness, politeness, and always show respect and appreciation for them. Usually in those situations, those people end up getting more critiques than actual positive feedback, and that positive feedback can mean a lot. So let's go ahead and get into it, though. First things first, that's why I have to give this huge preface, because I don't want to come off too harsh on them. First things first, the number one thing I would love to see added to PokeMMO is increasing dev communication. I think hiring one person, I know it's a lot to hire one person for their small developer team and their team, but to hire one person to act as a communicator between the player base and the developers. Hell, maybe even community managers could do this. Like, they already have that position. I understand the devs, from my experience and in my opinion, seem like just developers who like to put their head down and work and put out a great product and let that speak for itself. But you just can't do that, I feel like, in this current environment and day and age. I feel like a weekly blog post or something would mean absolutely worlds to casual and more serious players. Being able to put out like a weekly blog post like, hey, we hear your concerns on this, we're working on this in the background, like yada. Maybe not even weekly, like it could be a monthly. Weekly to bi-weekly would be incredible, but it could literally be a monthly blog post, just a monthly forum post saying, hey, we're currently looking at this, we're currently watching this, OU's kind of doing great, NU's kind of a mess, UU's fine, we're monitoring these things. Just communication would be incredible to let the devs know, or let us know, the player base know, that they care and they see the same concerns that we see, and they care about the game, and yada yada yada. And I understand that increasing communication can be frustrating. I think it is worth relegating an entire role, an entire job to that, because it can be so stressful. And that goes hand in hand with social media stuff and advertising the game more, doing more stuff on Twitter, which I think they have been doing. I think they have been doing a bit more stuff on Twitter. I see their posts talking about the Christmas event and everything of the sort, but having someone to manage social media stuff and manage a forum post or a dev blog post like that to just increase communication would be, I think, game changing for casual players and serious players alike. That would really benefit everyone with peace of mind. But anyways, I don't know. I think it's really hard to verbalize how powerful something like that is. Look at the old school RuneScape community, for example. I think they do a great job with that dev blog post. But anyways, let's go move on to the next point. Now, this is one that I've talked about, to death's door. So this is not going to be new. If you're new to my channel, this might be new, but if you're been around for a while, this is going to sound like I'm beating a dead horse. I would love to see the game. This is personal preference, personal opinion. I would love to see the RU/PU PvP tiers added to the game. I've been talking about adding more tiers for years now, since around 2017 to 2019, when Unova and Sinnoh were added. The game has way too many Pokemon to shove into just 3 PvP tiers, and what happens is hundreds of Pokemon end up getting stuffed into NU with no hope in sight for them being able to be playable. One of the best things about competitive Pokemon is that tiers make it so you can almost always use your favorite Pokemon on a team and make it work to some degree. So many Pokemon currently in the untiered/NU tier that are so unbelievably outclassed, they never really get a chance to shine. And it really puts a disgusting disadvantage when you try to experiment in PvP and when you try to run off-meta things. It really makes so much stuff become unplayable, especially when you don't lock in things like Blaziken. You really have to lock in Blaziken to be competitively viable in NU for the most part. Now, there are obviously some really good players or some really good teams like NU Rain. There's a certain couple NU Rain Dance players which are very talented players. I've seen on ladder a lot, setting up with Magneton and stuff. Very interesting stuff, but I think it's really important to talk about Blaziken. A good example of this is that very few Pokemon in the NU tier can break through Clefable, even though there's so many Pokemon stuffed into it. You have to run a strong fighting type, which currently you have 3 options. Blaziken, which is objectively the best one by far. It's very, very powerful. It's very good, has Choice Scarf, has U-Turn, has fire coverage, which is also a big deal since there's not very many good fire types at all, and NU as well. The second option is Hitmonchan, which in my opinion is kind of dog shit. Hitmonchan is very much just an offensive fighting type necessity that just has to happen as an alternative, but he's pretty bad in my opinion. Hitmontop is actually great. Hitmontop and Blaziken are your 2 main fighting answers or fighting Pokemon in my opinion. Hitmontop is great. The issue is most people want to run Hitmontop defensively and not really offensively to do enough damage with your CC to be able to take out Clefable, and that's when things get really, really difficult. So essentially what happens is Blaziken has to be in the NU tier because of Pokemon like Clefable, and instead of it being pushed out and allowing other fire/fighting types to shine, that can't happen because they need something to answer Clefable. Literally nothing else can do enough damage to pressure out Clefable properly, in my opinion. This is just one example of the systemic lack of balance currently in NU, and it leaves things like Blaziken constantly at a high usage percentage, even though I am bored of Blaziken, and I don't blame it. The problem lies with unbalanced, unanswerable mons like Clefable not being moved up, but often those mons who are moved up end up not being good enough in UU, so they get moved back down, and then in short, we desperately need more tiers to be able to properly balance those lower tiers. I think it's super, super, super important. Yeah, it's frustrating to never be able to pull out interesting Pokemon and then having to run certain things to answer certain Pokemon, etc., etc. Now, long rambles here. Glad I scripted a lot of this. Moving on to number 3. I would love to see PokeMMO and the developers start looking at options and discussing plans for late game PVM content, i.e. dungeons or raids. This is a tough one for me, honestly, because I don't think the game actually needs it. However, I have to acknowledge there's a difference between what I think is best for the game and what is truly best for the game. I think that the amount of desire that does exist for late game PVM content, alongside the amount of new players that constantly flood into the game, but also are constantly getting bored and burn out after defeating the storylines, it's pretty clear to me that people want some sort of designated path to follow. Not everyone is able to or wants to put the time and energy into creating their own goals for endgame content. Funnily enough, I think it's the PokeMMO dungeons. I think PokeMMO and its dungeons problem is very similar to the End Dragon in Minecraft. A hilarious analogy, I know. I personally am someone who could just mine and collect and build over and over and over again and never get bored in Minecraft. But there's a large amount of players who want that designated goal to work towards, i.e. the Ender Dragon. I think PokeMMO dungeons, raids, or even an achievement list or log type mechanic could fill that role for those types of players while also giving the more free range players like myself another option to just pursue. As much as I don't think the game needs it for me personally, I think it can be a win-win for many types of players. I think the biggest downside that I can think of would be the severe allocation of dev time. It would be a very big project to undertake, and I'm not sure how big the copyright ramifications are as well. This would obviously be a big project, but one that I think is well worth it if it's at all possible. I think the fact that the devs have talked about dungeons at all means it should be possible even with the copyright stuff, especially maybe with the newer generations and everything having raids of their own. So that's the top 3. However, there is an honorable mention. I don't want the devs to go too far and do too many things in 2023. I think that's something that's super important to encourage developers of all games to do. Don't try to implement all these brand new updates and all these brand new things. I want to see you take your time, make the best content, and oversee those updates. That's the honorable mention. Overseeing Johto specifically is what I have written down. So being able to constantly and patiently monitor stuff as updates as they are rolled out and really balance things out and take control of them is super important. I don't think this has ever been an issue in the PokeMMO scene, but it has been one that I've seen in pretty much every other video game. RuneScape and RuneScape 3 or old school RuneScape, even in Minecraft and other stuff. Like balancing stuff after releasing so many updates is really difficult. It's really tough. League of Legends is a great example of this, where they constantly pump out stuff but never balance the current state of the game. I think PokeMMO does a great job with this. I want to just throw it in there as an honorable mention, but I still think it's not really an issue they have, but it's worth mentioning. Do you think I'm missing anything? Let me know your thoughts on everything I talked about today down in the comments down below, or drop things you would like to see the devs work on in 2023. Also, make sure to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy today's content, or dislike if you think I'm a rambling idiot. Subscribe for daily PokeMMO videos and streams Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. EST. My Discord is also linked below if you're interested in that. And if you really find yourself liking my content and binging it for a couple hours, going above and beyond and supporting the channel for $5 a month with YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and or hitting up my PayPal/Venmo. The links are all down below. Really does allow me to keep making the best PokeMMO content possible. So I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you later, and I will see you throughout the year of 2023.